Ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
I must tell you, coming from the Caribbean, where it's warm, and where even if the rain falls, it doesn't fall for more than 10 minutes unless it's a hurricane. It was very hard to get up out of that bed to come here this evening. But I tell you that Barry invited me to do this, almost a year ago. And since then, we've become very good friends. You know how Barry is. I think everybody in this room would know Barry and how he is. So I'm very glad to be here with you. And when I asked him what I should talk about, he said I should talk about my experience as a credit unionist. So let me tell you about it. I became a member of a credit union when I was about 17 years old. I had just left high school, and I was working as a volunteer at the City of Kingston Cooperative Credit Union. Sorry, that's the wrong place. That's where I went years later. At the Kingston Legal Aid Clinic. And the City of Kingston Cooperative Credit Union had been formed a few years before that as the first community-based credit union in Jamaica. And I became a member because we collected money on behalf of COK at the Kingston Legal Aid Clinic. That was a period that you have in the UK called your gap year. So it's a period between high school and going to university. When I was going to university, I closed my credit union account, took the money out of it, and went off to university. Then I came back to Jamaica after university, became a lawyer, and with my first paycheck, I went back to join the credit union. It was a very momentous day. I was hit down by a car on the day I joined the credit union. I was going across the road, and I saw this car coming. I was parked across the road. I suffer from falling down. Does anybody understand what it means? It means that even when I was that age, I would walk and slip and fall down. So I knew that if I tried to run to get rid of the car, I would fall down. I knew it was going to happen. So I did a quick calculation. The height of the car, my height, where the car would hit me so as to do the less damage, and I turned my bottom to it. So that's the day I became a credit union member again. And over the next 2 years, I saved, and I was invited to join. I went to an annual general meeting of the credit union, of my credit union, and I talked a lot in that meeting. I soon discovered that the credit union had this philosophy, if you want to call it that anybody who gets up and talks in the annual general meeting, they find a way to rope you in to the leadership, but being a volunteer or whatever. So I was roped in to being on the delinquency committee. That was a committee that anybody could join. And I was on the delinquency committee for a while, and then I became a member of the board. I was on the board for a while, and then my credit union decided that it wanted to grow. Remember, we were the first community-based credit union. Up to that point, all the credit unions had a bond, which meant that they were employee-based or they were church-based, but ours was the first community-based credit union. And there was a lot of resentment to that credit union. I don't know if you have that experience here in the UK, but there was. But my board decided it wanted to grow. and they wanted to put the management into the credit union. I was a lawyer by then, and I was invited to join the staff of the credit union as the first person employed to a credit union in Jamaica who was a lawyer. Can you imagine that? The other credit unions felt that COK was growing out of its boots. Imagine, it was employing lawyer now. Next thing, they're going to employ professional managers. And we did. At the time I joined COK, we probably had about 38,000 members. I went there on a contract for 2 years as a legal advisor. And before I actually joined the staff, the HR manager had gone on holidays to the USA and decided she was not coming back. So I became the HR manager. I knew absolutely nothing about HR. So I immediately enrolled myself in a course and got myself a diploma in Human Resources Development Management, which is a great thing. Can you imagine mixing law, HR, and credit union together? So we built COK. I became general manager a few years later, and after I did that for a while, I was encouraged, is that the word I should use? Coerced is probably more the word, into politics. Prime Minister appointed me as a senator and later as a minister of government. So I had to give up my job at the credit union. When I left COK, we had 140,000 members. So I moved it from 38,000 to 140,000. During that time, in order to be able to grow like that, we had to put the structures in place. We had to put the technology in place. But more importantly, we had to make sure that the services that we were providing to people were the services that they wanted. Not only the services that they wanted, but services that they could access very easily. And how did we do this? We created a number of new programs. We were the first credit union to have had a credit card. Now, those of you who are here, you grew up with this. You know what credit cards are about. Credit unions didn't have credit cards. There were times when we were accused of thinking that we were banks. But guess what? My objective, the objective of my board at the time, was to make sure that we were, in fact, competing with the banks. That anything that the bank was offering our member, we could offer it and we could do it better. And that they would feel more a part of this organization. They were members, they were owners. They had a stake in how the organization was run. They had a stake in whether or not the organization made money for them. Because you all know, at the end of the year, when we do our accounts and when we make a profit, that profit goes back to the members. Not like the banks, where the profit goes to the few people who owned the bank. Not the thousands and thousands of people who save and borrow from the banks. Now, as I say that, I'm very conscious of the difference in how credit unions are organized in Jamaica and the Caribbean than how they're organized here in the UK. In our countries, in Jamaica, we make no bones about the fact that we are competing with the banks. We want to take away the customers from the bank. And so we have to do what the banks do and do it better. Credit unions started in Jamaica in the 1940s. Between the just around between the two wars, when things were very hard, there was a time when we had in Jamaica people who were called usurers. Do you know those people? Are you competing with those people as credit unions? Where they charged exorbitant rates of interest. And Father John Peter Sullivan, who was a Jesuit priest from the United States, from the Boston area, introduced credit unions to Jamaica. And how did he do this? He started to meet with a group of men who were part of what was called the Men's Sodality. So credit unions in Jamaica are based on Christian principles. And I know, and let me just say this, that in some parts of the world you can't talk about being a Christian. But in Jamaica you can. In fact, they love it when you talk about being a Christian, because a lot of the principles are what credit unions are based on, even if you are not a practicing Christian. So the credit union started in that way. The first credit union was called the Sodality Credit Union. Years later, they merged with COK. So COK, City of Kingston Credit Union, has now become City of Kingston Sodality Credit Union. And so it was very important in those days to teach people about the credit union movement, to let them understand what it meant to be a cooperator, what it meant to be part of an organization that is democratic and that you as a member owned the organization and had a say and a stake in how the organization was managed and what the money was used for. And so they started off with the words, not for charity, not for profit, but for service. And I think it is fair to say that credit unions in Jamaica and the Caribbean have tried to stay true to these words. No matter how large we grew, it was important that every single member felt that they were a part of this organization. When I was the general manager, I would take at least 1 to 2 hours every day to walk down into what we call the members area and to just stand there and talk to the credit union members. Just be there. And you know what that has done? I have been out of the credit union as a manager for the last 15 years, and I've had several jobs, as you have heard. And I'm now here in the UK as High Commissioner. And I'm ambassador to a number of other countries. It is so surprising to me when I go around the UK, there are people who will come to me and who will say, I remember you. You were my credit union manager. There was a time in Jamaica when I was known as the credit union lady, because one of the things that COK did is to set up a promotions and advertising program. Nobody in the credit union movement had done that before. We advertised what it was meant to be a credit union member. We advertised so that people would know what it was that we were doing. We had a very, very good outreach program where at every general meeting, before the members took their dividend, they put aside an amount of money which was spent to do outreach. And how did we do the outreach? We did the outreach by working with women's organizations, help to provide financial training for women and for men if they needed it, help to provide entrepreneurial training, because we don't have enough businesses in Jamaica to employ everybody. So a lot of people have to be self-employed, which means they have to find work, they have to make work for themselves. We had programs where we'd get people to come in the evenings, and persons who ran their own small business would come and learn how to keep records, how to make sure that you don't just operate with an apron and everything you earn you put in one pocket, and everything you need to pay your bills you took it out of that pocket to pay, so you never knew from one day to the next how much your business was earning. Sometimes some of the people didn't have the education, so we encourage them to come with their child or with their children who would learn it on their behalf and then transfer that knowledge to the parent. We did programs in outreach for children. And out of the outreach for children, we began to set up our own junior credit unions. We began to have credit unions for young people, for students in the school. We also, as we grew, realized that we couldn't provide the services to individuals. When you have 40,000 members, it's difficult for everybody to come in. So what we did was that we appointed liaison officers in the different places of employment where we had more than 10 persons working there who were members of COK. And that person was the link to the office with the persons who were employed in that particular place. And we had programs specifically for the liaison officers. So they would learn about the credit union, they would learn about the new programs, they would then be able to tell the people who they work with what was available. We taught them financial counseling so that they could provide those kinds of services to their members, because we're very conscious they're a membership organization. I want to tell you this. Jamaica has 2.7 million persons living in Jamaica. We also have another 3 million living outside of Jamaica. Many of them are here in the UK. And because of that, I don't get a lot of rest, because on weekends, I have to go and see them. The work I did in the credit union trained me very well for this. But 1 in every 3rd person in the country is a credit union member. We have over 900,000 credit union members. We used to have about 115 credit unions, but over time, the policy has been to amalgamate credit unions. So we now have about 35 credit unions serving over 900,000 members. There are some countries in the Caribbean, for example, Dominica. They have 100% membership of their population in credit unions. So that the credit union membership in the Caribbean is very high. I noticed this week that the World Council of Credit Unions sent out a release saying that the British Credit Union membership had made a pledge that you would have 2 million credit union members by 2020, I think it is. Somebody could correct me. And when I saw that, I said to myself, how many people live in the UK? Does anybody know? How many million? I would like to challenge you to let it be 20 million rather than 2 million. Because let me tell you, and I'm trying to be very diplomatic here, the same circumstances that exist in all countries in the Caribbean that cause credit unions to be so successful are the same circumstances here. Many of the things are the same. People have the needs. People don't feel, I'll tell you this. You have to join a bank when you come here. You have to have a bank account. Many people never go into their banks. How many of you ever walk into your bank? Put your hand up. No? Well, I'll tell you this. I go to my bank every single month. They are to know me. When I set foot in that bank, I suppose it's my credit union experience. I cannot be just a number. Somebody must know who I am. And that's what credit unions do. Somebody knows who you are. You are not just a number. So I'm saying I would like to challenge the credit union movement here in the UK. Let it not just be 2 million people here who are credit union members. It ought to be 20 million. Is it possible?
Yes.
Of course it's possible. Those of you who are here, who are celebrating tonight, those who will receive awards, the Filene Award, the Joe Biden Award, you're credit unionists, you're credit union development educators. I'm very excited about this program because it is the program that will breathe new life into credit unions, train managers, train volunteers into understanding this great movement that we're a part of. Let me tell you something. Everything I own, I've got through my credit union. Everything I own. I own my house because I borrowed the money from the credit union. I own my cars because I borrowed the money from the credit union. I sent my son to school, to university, by getting the money to borrow from the credit union. And I'm sure that there are many, many people in the United Kingdom, if they only knew what it was to be a member of a credit union, what it is, the distinction between being a credit union member, and I'm sorry for those of you who are here who are bankers. Please forgive me, but I'm a credit unionist. Yes, I have to have a bank account because unfortunately in Jamaica we don't yet have the permission to draw checks. But now nobody's using a check anymore, so nobody needs a bank anymore. Is that a terrible thing to say? It's not. The credit union member movement in Jamaica has never received $1 from the government. It has never received $1 from a bank. All of what it has accomplished by way of the contributions of the members. I remember when the law changed and we had to make sure that we had capital adequacy. In COK, we looked at what it was that was needed for every credit union member to contribute to the capital adequacy of that credit union. And we said to them, we need to get from you $2,000 to put in this special account. You can either give it to us now, or you can tell us to take it from your credit union account, or you can say, take $100 over a time. And we set a period. And credit union members just put that money in their organization. In the 1990s, when we had the meltdown of the banks, which I think you had in the 2000, not one credit union went under. Not one credit union in Jamaica, not one credit union member lost $1. And I think that that speaks to the kind of members we have, the kind of boards and committees and management that we have, and the kind of forward-looking organization that credit unions are. And I am very proud to be a credit union member. I'm very proud to be an honorary. Barry tells me I have to use the word honorary because I've never been able to find the 7 days all at once to be able to do the Credit Union Development Educators Program, although I've actually gone and spoken at some of the events. But I'm very proud to be a credit union member, as I'm sure all of you who are here this evening are. Barry, thank you very much for asking me to speak. I've really enjoyed the evening. Thank you.